It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Saturday night, the Boone County Republican Committee had Jan Morgan, Republican gubernatorial candidate, as their keynote speaker. Now, she was scheduled to do this event like 6 months ago. And, of course, now she's running for governor, and Asa Hutchinson wanted in on some of the speaking, and it was kind of a back and forth, I understand, between people negotiating. Asa wanted to speak last. Of course, that's not what happened. Jan Morgan spoke last. Governor Asa Hutchinson spoke first. And I want to start with Asa's audio first, and then we're going to get to Jan's. Let me give you let me editorialize it for you for a second, because I've listened to both speeches. And I will tell you that Jan Morgan's speech was not a typical Jan Morgan campaign speech. That's not what you're going to hear today when we go over the audio and video for those of you watching the program. It wasn't a typical Jan Morgan campaign speech. She actually wrote a speech out, which is rare. I've never seen her do that. She normally does not read from a script. She likes to just, talk to the people, walk around, look people. She makes great eye contact. And so that's not what it was about. This Jan Morgan's speech was a summary of the things that she has heard on the campaign trail from the people. And what she did last night on Saturday night, was give the Republican Party a warning in terms of, if we continue to govern this way, and I'm summarizing, if we continue to essentially ignore what I've been saying, ignore the reforms that the people of Arkansas have been voting on, if we continue to, in many ways, ignore the platform of the Republican Party, then Arkansas is going to wind up being a blue state. This was essentially her message. And it was done very well. She did not attack Asa directly. The only thing she said to Asa directly, I think, was, "Hey, I'm ready to have an actual debate." And so Asa gave more of a campaign speech. Asa gave more of a speech that was me. Jan Morgan gave a speech that was, this is what the people are saying. This is what I'm hearing as I've traveled the state the past 8 months. This is what I'm hearing. And Asa was having to essentially reintroduce himself. And I want to talk about that. I want to talk about, what does that really mean when Asa is having to reintroduce himself to Republican voters? And here's an example. So Kenny Wallace on Twitter, he live streamed this event and got some great footage of the event as well. It's up on YouTube with, I think, Keep Arkansas Legal. We're going to get to that here in a minute. But let's go to the Facebook. Let's go to his Facebook page. Let's throw this up there. Here is Asa Hutchinson, part of his speech. Now, he just got through talking about how serving the people of Arkansas, being governor, is the greatest honor of his life. And then he gets into this area. Take a listen.
While I've been blessed, I have fought a few tough battles. Whenever you look back 30 years, and one of the state police troopers is retired, mentioned it to me, and he talked about he was at the CSA, the terrorist group in northern Arkansas, in which I was the young U.S. attorney that was called in, had a 3-day siege with this terrorist group, and I was called to help assist in the negotiation for the surrender of James Ellison, the leader of that group. I prosecuted them here, put them in jail, because I believe those battles are worth fighting for the rule of law. Whenever you look at my role as a county chairman, Dan, you do a great job. I've been a county chairman. Benton County, Sebastian County. Fighting that battle against the political machine in the 90s, I became state party chairman. And many of you were there when we had to fight that machine in this state to get it equal access to the ballot. And we got that with our equal primary system that helped give us a foundation for growth in this party and a two-party system in this state.
All right, stop for a second. So Asa is saying that he used to fight the political machine. That he did fight the political machine. Now, let's assume that's correct. How are you fighting the political machine now, Asa? How can you fight yourself would be the next question I would ask. What are you doing to fight yourself at this point? Because you now are the political machine in this state. I think that's not in dispute. I don't see how anyone could dispute that. So I think it's fantastic taking you at your word. You fought the political machine in the state. What are you doing to fight it now? How are you going to war with yourself now? Politics certainly is different now than it was back then. I was the young U.S. attorney, he says. I was the young U.S. attorney that was called in to negotiate with that terrorist group in northern Arkansas. Okay, great. How far back do we want to stretch here? Why is Asa Hutchinson having to reintroduce himself to the people of Arkansas? That's what I want to know this morning. Can you go to his Ballotpedia page real quick? I just want to point something out to you for a second. If you go to Asa Hutchinson's Ballotpedia page, you see right there, let's just go over this. This is his political career. In 1982, Hutchinson was appointed by President Ronald Reagan to be U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Arkansas. In 1990, Hutchinson ran unsuccessfully for the post of Attorney General of the state of Arkansas. In 86, Hutchinson ran unsuccessfully for a seat in the United States Senate. Okay, so in 1990, he ran unsuccessfully for Attorney General. That's a statewide election. That's number one. 86, he ran for the U.S. Senate unsuccessfully. Okay, so that's statewide race number two. In 96, he ran for U.S. Congress defeating. So he won in 96, but that's not a statewide race. In 2001, scroll down so I can read this, please, Joe. No, we're up to 2001. Hutchinson resigned his seat in 2001 to the U.S. House of Representatives because he got appointed by President Bush to serve as the administrator for the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency. 2003, Hutchinson was appointed Undersecretary of Border and Transportation Security for the U.S. Department of Homeland Security by George W. Bush. Scrolling up. In 2006, Hutchinson ran against Mike Beebe for the seat being vacated by incumbent Republican Governor Mike Huckabee, who was unable to run for a third term. And he lost that race in 2006. So that would be his third statewide election. Okay? So 3 statewide elections. Yeah. And so then, of course, in 2014, he wins. Statewide election, he wins. So is that, did I count that right? So that's 4 statewide elections. So would this be his 5th? So he's currently in his 4th or 5th statewide election. And he's having to reintroduce himself to the people of Arkansas. Now, does that seem strange to anyone? I know he's trying to prove his conservative track record, Joe. You're exactly right. But shouldn't we all be convinced of his conservative track record at this point in time? A guy who's been around for decades, who's run 4, now 5 statewide elections and been successful at one of them. I guess I want to know, why does he feel the need to I know he's campaigning. Look, I know that's the easy answer, but the fact that he has to reintroduce himself and remind us all of how conservative he is very, very strange to me. You know, it's kind of like I think a lot of this is if the people should already know these things if he really has done things that have had a massive positive effect, net positive on the constituents around him. You know what I'm saying? Or if a lot of people don't, but you're right. A lot of people don't pay attention. But they are paying attention to Jan Morgan, right? And that poll the other week scared them of her getting 30%. There's another poll out that came out, let's say a KRN poll came out on Twitter, and we'll show that to you later in the program. But Jan Morgan came out on top of that handily, and she said she intentionally didn't mention it on her social media pages because she didn't want to, put her thumb on the scale. I want somebody, feel free, somebody answer me. Or does anyone else find it strange Asa Hutchinson's run 4 statewide elections. This is his 5th, and he's having to reintroduce himself to the people of Arkansas by reminding us where he came from. I find that odd. I think when you're having to do that, and again, the reason he's doing this is, I guess this is all he has, because of he can point to some things that he's done, but conservatism by association. That's really good, Joe. Conservatism by association. I would just think that you don't like the record you have when you're running against somebody who is an articulate conservative, who is talking about the tax increases, right? I'll say I was listening to an Asa Hutchinson ad on a radio station over the weekend, and it was a new ad. It was about Arkansas being a pro-life state, and I thought, all right, here we go. Here is, to me, it was the most honest Asa Hutchinson ad so far. And I haven't listened to the. I think maybe there was a few things that I thought was carefully crafted language, but for the most part, and I've given Asa credit. I've said when he, good job defunding Planned Parenthood of the Heartland. That was good. I don't think we should act like it's a tough decision to defund Planned Parenthood of the Heartland. Number one, it's Planned Parenthood. Number two, he defunded them right after the videos of them selling baby body parts came out. Pretty much a no-brainer. Is it horrific? Is it genocide? Yeah, it's all those things, but it's not exactly something that is, some sort of trigonometry level decision where it's like, what do I do here? It's like, no, they were selling the body parts of dead babies. Pretty sure that's a no-brainer. We don't want taxpayer money, Arkansas taxpayer money, going to that. And I'm glad he did it. I think it's a good thing. But, he can't really run. You got his supporters out there talking about how the tire taxes really didn't increase, when we can look at the Department of Finance and Administration's own documents that say it was a tax increase, and it was written into the law. They increased the fees, and a fee is a tax increase. So I just feel like the reason he's having to reintroduce himself is what Joe just said, conservatism by association. He's hoping it sticks. But to me, I just feel like that shows you how the last 3.5 years have been more about growing government than about reducing government. And so let's just, let's name drop, essentially. You tell me what you guys think. The number 870-275-9799, covering the Boone County Republican Party. They had Jan Morgan as their keynote speaker. Asa Hutchinson's speech was a typical campaign speech, and it was very light for the most part, but it was also him having to remind us, me, and Jan's speech was more about the people of Arkansas. Let's listen. Kenny Wallace got this footage. He was at the event. We're going with the first Jan Morgan cut. Whenever you're ready, take it away, Joe.
But anyone here who is expecting and hoping that there will be a verbal jab fest between the governor and I are going to be sadly disappointed tonight, because that's not what's going to happen. I'm going to save that for the debate stage, which, by the way, Governor, I keep asking you. I've been challenging you since January 1 to a debate.
Burn.
No, the message that I have to deliver to you tonight is much more important than a message about a race between Jan and Asa. The message I have to deliver tonight is about the future of the Republican Party. It is about what is at stake if we fail to heed the message that 72% of the people of our state sent in the last presidential election. I am here tonight to deliver that message. I want you to know that over the past 8 months, it has been my greatest privilege to travel this state and not only talk with the people, but more importantly, listen to the people. I have been in every corner of this state. I have listened to people from all walks of life and from all backgrounds. And so the message that I have to deliver tonight from them is what I'm about to share with you. I'm not delivering a campaign speech tonight. Those of you who want to know about Jan Morgan and why I'm here can look on the janmorganforgovernor.com website. My policy platform is there.
Stop for a second.
The message I'm delivering...
I'm telling you, the Asa Hutchinson campaign, they were not ready for this speech last night or on Saturday night. They were not prepared for this. They thought they had people, I'm told, in the crowd ready to if Jan would have directly addressed Asa on the issues of his tax increases and things like that, I think they had people in the crowd who were ready to heckle and boo. They were not ready. This was a, in my opinion, just a really, really strong political move, because there was a ton of Jan people there. There was a ton of Asa people there. And this was a speech to the Republican Party saying, you guys better start enacting the policies that you campaign on, or the Republican Party is going to take serious losses, in 4 years. And I've said this for a long time. Do you know why I've said this? Because it's the same reason that Barack Obama was easily able to walk into the White House. Because George W. Bush was not a conservative. He grew government more than any president until Barack Obama. And when it all came crumbling down, and when he talks about this bogus, well, I had to abandon free market principles to save the free market with all the bailouts. When he did all of that, supporting the big banks and the big financial industries that are tied to all of this global policy that they're trying to enact, when they did that, guess what? The liberal media said conservatism was tried and failed, and now we have to try progressivism. And conservatism had never been tried at all. There was no Calvin Coolidge type policy being implemented by George W. Bush, and there's no Calvin Coolidge type policy being implemented by Asa Hutchinson. And so if we continue down this path, we're going to have disastrous results. We have a governor that successfully lobbied to get an amendment passed to where we can put an unlimited amount of debt on our state to finance bonds and give away to private companies. Cities and counties can now do the same thing, finance bonds, and they can over-leverage us. And what do you think is going to happen when people start making bad bets, or we have an economic downturn, or whatever it is? Do you think John Brummett's going to say, well, we tried moderate Republicanism and maybe... No, he's going to say, we tried it the conservative way, and now we've got to go back to the Democrat way. And that's what happens when you don't actually implement the limited government policies that work when it comes to restoring more freedom and opportunity to the people and more voluntary cooperation instead of forced cooperation. We'll go back to Jan Morgan. Take a listen.
Tonight is for the Republican Party of Arkansas, and whether you are an Asa fan or a Jan fan, this message is for all of you, because we're all on the same side. And in the end, our goal is to keep Arkansas a strong red state.
All right, next up, that was the beginning of her speech. Jan Morgan then said this. Listen.
Republicans in control of our state capital, we should have made significant strides in reducing the tax burden off the backs of the people. And yet, we shift numbers, play shell games, and betray their trust. I stand here because our government continues to make laws that hurt the people rather than help them. I stand here because 10% of the state's most wealthy control policy through bought and paid for career politicians who serve the interests of the economic elites rather than the people at large. I'm standing here tonight because people no longer trust their government, because under Republican leadership, we have voted down legislation that brings transparency, ethics, and accountability to our state government.
Brian King's bill.
I stand here because I love our state, and because I care. And because I've listened to the people who are desperately searching for real representation in their state government. They're asking for town hall meetings again, folks, the kind that I've been doing now for 8 months. They want to look our politicians in the eye and our governor, and they want to have their voices heard. I stand here because I want people to know that there is hope, and that help is on the way, and that under Republican leadership, legislators should be free to work for the people rather than pressured to work against the people.
Well, she looked right at Asa when
This
she
is
said
truly a
that.
critical moment, folks, in our state's history. The Republican Party will be judged for what we have done with the people's trust. Will we be the party that has repealed and raised the taxes on groceries, prescriptions, farming equipment, and church programs that feed the homeless, which is what our current tax reform commission under Republican leadership is talking about doing? Will we be the party of politicians who governed as we campaigned? Or will we be the party of politicians who misrepresented for personal gain? People are watching us. We, today's Republicans, stand on the backs of real conservatives who toiled for years in a blue state, growing the party, trying to convince the people that living and working in Arkansas is better under conservative leadership. We have had 4 years, folks, to prove to the people, and instead we have more tax shell games, growing government, and the embarrassment of FBI investigations and Republicans under investigation for corruption and kickbacks. We, the Republican Party, we are better than this. For the integrity of our party, for the sake of our state, and restoring the trust of our people, my presence in the political arena at this time and at this critical moment in our state's history is to sound the alarm. We must wake up, we must stand up, and we must fight for a return, a true return to the foundation of this party and its fiscal, constitutional, and moral values that made it the party of, by, and for the people.
That's Jan Morgan at the Boone County. Stop right there. Boone County, really, really, really well done. Again, it was a message, not a campaign speech, more of a message to the Republican Party. This is what I'm hearing. This is what we need to be worried about. We actually have to govern the way we campaign. Really powerful stuff. When she brings up the corruption, now what's she talking about? Fiscal, constitutional, and moral high ground. This is the moral high ground that Asa Hutchinson, for example, should have called for Jake Fowles' resignation well before the indictment, or well before he pled guilty, okay? The Republican Party of Arkansas should have done the same thing, and yet they didn't do it. It's just so strange when you look at how much ground we've lost in being able to say that this movement of conservatism that can be found in the platform of the Republican Party, it's just, well, if you are high enough up on the chain, or if you're part of the good old boy system, if you were a more of a maverick or a rogue conservative, as they would like to say, a non-intellectual conservative, as they would like to say, and you had a conservative voting record, and you were even hinted at being in an FBI investigation, they would immediately call for your resignation. I'm getting a text from somebody who was at the Boone County Republican dinner. You should have seen Aisha. Total cringe. Yeah, so he didn't like this speech. I don't think, of course he didn't like this speech. She looked right at him, by the way, when she said we need to stop pressuring legislators, to vote against the will of the people. Let them vote for the will of the people. That's exactly what has happened, folks. That's exactly what, the governor. I mean, you can go listen to our impression of the session DVD, where we interviewed all these legislators and lobbyists. Well, not lobbyists, but we interviewed, for example, Jerry Cox of the Family Council. Well, I mean, he's a lobbyist for family values, and he said, but the governor. I got to check with the governor. They agreed to run the legislation, but then they backed out because of the governor. I mean, it is, and it hasn't been like this. For the people who are saying, has not been this bad since Bill Clinton was down there. All right, last Jan Morgan cut. Or is that the last one, or you? I think No, we didn't do the middle one. We didn't. Did she? Okay. And what's the third one? We haven't done that one. Look. Okay, well, so this is the last one. Okay, so cue the last one. Sorry, Joe. My apology. I know. Okay, go ahead. Last cut, Jan Morgan here at her speech.
The Governor, I look forward to debating all those points you brought up in your campaign speech.
Oh, this is more. This is more the beginning.
Let's talk about that.
This is more the beginning.
Here's the message from the people of Arkansas to my fellow Republicans tonight. And you all that know me and have heard me speak before, you know I normally don't write a speech. I like to walk around. I like to just talk with the people. But because I'm delivering a message from the people, and these are their words, and I want to make sure that I don't forget anything, I wanted to write it down for you. Please listen to what the people have had to say that we, the Republican Party, must hear. There is a great disparity between the Arkansas that our government tells us we have versus the Arkansas that most of us live in. There is a great divide between those few prospering off our state government and the forgotten people who pay for that prosperity.
That's right.
There is something wrong when people fear their state government instead of our government fearing the people. There is something wrong when our state house is viewed as the marble palace rather than the servants' quarters.
Whoever came up with that term.
There is something wrong when our government agencies, supported by our people's money, use our state agencies to destroy families, regulate businesses out of business,
DCFS,
and tax our people into poverty. There is something terribly wrong when our politicians use carefully crafted language and creative number games to deceive people about the reality of our state's condition and what our party is really doing while in control of our state government. For example, let's talk about the unemployment rate. We can talk all day about we're responsible for the lowest unemployment numbers in Arkansas history. But the people of Arkansas are much smarter than that. They're not buying it because they know that that unemployment statistic is a reflection on the number of people who are just still out there trying to find a job. The real numbers and the numbers of people who are unemployed in our state are the numbers that we all know. And those are the people who have dropped off the rolls
they give up
of
looking.
those seeking employment.
And no longer counted.
They are the people who are no longer trying, who have given up and are now on our welfare rolls.
Or underemployment.
All right, stop.
Let's talk about taxes.
Yeah, you heard Kenny Wallace there whisper or underemployed. I mean, and then of course we're supposed to believe that these jobs are going to come when we have a skilled workforce shortage in this state. We're supposed to believe that the jobs are going to come if we give our taxpayer money away to Chinese companies. Amy on Facebook writes, she's channeling you, Paul. Amy, I appreciate that. I would just listen. Jan is she's great at presenting the facts of the reality of what's going on. And a lot of that stuff is stuff that we have talked about on this program for a couple of years now. And so it is refreshing that it's in the it's in front of these Republicans, It's in front of that are many of them are, party loyalists, but they don't know. A lot of people don't know what we cover. We need you to tell everybody in your sphere of influence about this program. I have said, here's an example. I have said for years, and you can look this up. I have said for years, you could take just little issues and take them to the people of Arkansas and catapult yourself on top of the political establishment. And I think Jan is attempting to do that. Now, we have Asa Hudson's big government record, which are not small issues, but here's an example of a small issue, is what I mean. Okay, recording all committee votes or recording all legislative votes. These people pretend like they don't legislate in committee. They only legislate when they're on the floor. Well, that's ridiculous. because committees are where bills go to live or die. The fact is, most Arkansans do not know that most of the legislating that is done by their representatives are not recorded or is not recorded. Most Arkansans do not know this. And so they don't know the legislative sleight of hand that takes place, the political trickery that is rampant, where somebody will vote for something on a voice vote to get it out of committee and then vote against it when they're on the floor. They vote for it to get it out. They vote against it on the floor. The bill passes. They look like they opposed it, but they really supported it. They helped it along. They did a political favor. Now, some people say, that's been going on since the 18th century. Well, maybe so, but I should think that I should have a right to know about it. Whether it's been going on or not, there should be a record of it to where I can say, hey, how come you voted for this in committee and voted against it on the floor? Most people are outraged when they find out that committee votes aren't recorded. Right? One of the main reasons I supported, affectionately referred to as on this program, the Benedict Arnold of the Arkansas State Senate, Senator John Cooper. It was part of his a stump speech that all legislative votes should be recorded. Guess what? Does he care? Does he try to get that? No, because he listened to the people at the Marble Palace say, you can't do it. It's just, we can't record all the votes. It would take too much time. Well, number one, that's not necessarily the case. You could do it very efficiently. But number two, so what if it does take more time? That means less bills. That means less, it's a slower process. It doesn't move as fast. Maybe the legislators will have more time to read the bills. See, how is it that Republicans have such a majority down there in Arkansas, and where we're supposed to be a conservative state, and I'm the one that has to point this out to them? I'm the one that has to suggest these ideas? It's because the gatekeepers, the people at the leadership. Jan Morgan hit it, 10% of the economic elite are controlling the policy. They're controlling the policy of this state with career politicians. She spoke to the heart of corruption in Arkansas politics. We're going to have Jan Morgan on the program tomorrow at 7:33. Back in a minute.